Welcome back to the Burgundy and Gold Review, everyone. My name is Jess of HTTR.nation on Instagram, with Sam, of course, of WSH Football 365. And organized team activities, also known as OTAs, have wrapped up for the Washington football team. We are done with practices until training camp hits the ground running in July, and it's a bit of a dull period in the NFL right now, but we've got some listener questions that you guys sent us on Instagram that we're going to try and get through today. So let's get rolling.
Good to be back. Good to be inching closer to football season, Jess. We are 80 days away from the start of the season against the LA Chargers at FedEx Field with 100% capacity, which is exciting after everything we went through as a human race last year. So, let's get down to the questions. Have a few that we pulled off of Instagram. Some pretty good ones. Glad that you guys are listening along and getting engaged with the podcast. The first one we're going to touch on is from @Moonboy. He said, "Who do you think our starting quarterback will be?" Obviously, this has been a big question since the end of time, basically with the Washington football team / Redskins. Obviously, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick, the journeyman veteran, on the roster. Also have late season hero Taylor Heineke and coaching favorite Kyle Allen. All of them has seen starting time. All of them are liked by the staff. Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick has the most experience by many, many miles on both. Taylor Heineke's a spark plug, can't seem to stay healthy. And you can't ever really rule Kyle Allen out, but he is coming off of a pretty bad ankle injury. So it'll definitely be a race in training camp. Jess, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, all three are locks to make the roster, obviously. So these questions are probably going to be looming no matter who ends up getting named the starter throughout the season. I mean, one of these guys has a bad game, there'll be at least some portion of the fan base likely calling for someone else to come in and take his spot. But I think it's hard to go with anyone but Ryan Fitzpatrick right now. I think Fitzpatrick is the heavy favorite. I do believe that the national media hype for him, at least recently, I don't know if you've been seeing this, Sam, but like Instagram post, Twitter, it just seems I see a new Ryan Fitzpatrick post or meme or something from a reporter or national media outlet the past couple of weeks, and it has gotten a bit out of hand. But I think with everything that Ron Rivera said, all the reps he's gotten in OTAs, I just don't see any way that he's not the starter. Now, if Fitzmagic turns into Fitztragic throughout the season, then I think the Heineke train, there is some momentum there that he could come in, week 5, 6, 7. We saw that Rivera wasn't, I guess, scared to pull the plug on the Dwayne Haskins experience last season. So I think there's a possibility we could see that. But I just can't see any way that Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't starting week 1.
I totally agree. It's just too much of a tall hill to climb for Taylor Heineke. And as much as I like him, he has been in the league a while, and there's a reason why he is in and out of the league and playing as a backup in the XFL. And it's no discredit to him. Like, I can't play quarterback. And the dude has all the talent in the world, but he does get hurt. And he got hurt taking or handing off the ball in practice last. I mean, it just happens to him a lot for some reason. And yeah, he looked good in OTAs, but a point that a lot of people brought up, it was against the backups. So you got Ryan Fitzpatrick that's coming in, hasn't really learned the offense yet. It's in OTAs, hasn't even been to training camp yet, so it's not even fair to grade him on that level. I have to totally agree. Taylor Heineke would have a monumental, rare climb to become starter. That would be, he would have to accomplish a lot more, but it would be on par with how Kurt Warner came back from stocking shelves. It's not just, it's just something that I don't think is going to happen. And Ryan Fitzpatrick's definitely the most realistic. Moving right along with that, because we'll have plenty of time to talk about that more in training camp. Here's something else that a listener sent in. This is from Dave Monaco 10 asking, why are we not making a move for Aaron Rodgers? Let's just shoot that down really quick, because that's just like it's not even realistic. Like, number one, the Green Bay isn't even. It would be one thing if Green Bay was like, hey everybody, Aaron Rodgers is open for trade. They're not. They're saying he's not open for trade. They're doing the exact opposite. I say this term all the time. Life isn't Madden. This is the real NFL. It's a pipe dream. Would Aaron Rodgers look great in Burgundy and Gold? Absolutely. Will we win a lot of games with Aaron Rodgers? Definitely. Is it going to happen? There's nearly a negative percent chance. Jess, do you want to piggyback on this at all?
I mean, there's not much more I can toss in that you didn't just hit right there. Not to kind of bag on the question here. I mean, it is a popular idea. Who wouldn't want to have Aaron Rodgers as quarterback? But I just think if we're being realistic here, A, I don't see him getting traded at all. And B, if he were to get traded, I'm not really sure what Washington would even offer for that kind of package. I think it would start at least 3 first-round picks. Whether or not Washington should make a move like that, I'm fully in favor for, but that's like way, way out of the realm of possibility. It's just, there's no real way to say it. Other way than just saying I don't see it happening. It's just not realistic to me. I think Rodgers is either going to hold out until he gets a new contract, or he might sit out a few games and then come back into the season. We'll see, but I do not see Aaron Rodgers changing teams or let alone coming to Washington in 2021.
Next question comes from @big_Zell. Who do you think is going to be the starter at free safety? Jess, I'll let you spearhead this question.
I think it's kind of hard to pick out a name right now. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of options the team could go. We've talked about it at length with, both Logan and Mitch on the pod already. I think right now, if I had to make a pick, I'd go Bobby McCain just out of experience and I guess reliability. Dark horse pick. I don't know. I think I'm gonna roll with McCain, but I don't think it's crazy to think that DeShazier Everett or maybe even Jeremy Reeves could get an early look there.
Yeah, it's another year, another time that we're searching for the free safety. But with the addition of McCain, it gives you someone that I certainly feel a little bit better than going in with, say Jeremy Reeves and Troy Apke. I happen to agree. I think it will be McCain, but with the starting free safety is a very loose term in this defense. I think like starting anything is kind of a loose term in this defense. That's not defensive end. Um, so I wouldn't put a whole lot of value into who you're seeing on the roster at free safety one because I think they're going to move a lot of guys around. I know they're going to move a lot of guys around. So you'll see a combination of Kendall Fuller back there more than likely, especially with the addition of William Jackson. You could see Jeremy Reeves back there. Yeah, I mean, who knows? But yeah, I'd have to say day one, week one, it would be McCain as well.
I do want to toss in there that I've seen it very loosely mentioned at times, whether it be scrolling through Twitter or in an Instagram comment section or direct message or something like that. But some people, suggested Cameron Curl moving to free safety, which I understand why there's like you just mentioned, free safety is a very loose term for what kind of responsibilities come in the secondary with an NFL defense right now. But I just wanted to touch on the Cam Curl free safety thing because there's no real reason to take him outside of his comfort zone or move him beyond what he's already proven that he can do as a player for the sake of, say, making sure Landon Collins can play strong safety too. Cam Curl and Landon Collins can both play in the defense without, one of them having to be a free safety. Like there are multiple ways that they can work these guys into the secondary or onto the field. I don't think there's a reason to kind of test the limits. I mean, if the coaching staff is comfortable with Curl taking on those responsibilities or a different skill set, then by all means. But just for the sake of trying to fit as many guys as you can possible onto the secondary, I think it doesn't make sense for me to take him outside a position he's already shown he can play at a really good level at.
I totally agree. That I've never understood the concept of wanting to move a player that does really well at one position and moving to another because okay, he's like I said, he's really good at that position. That's what he's good at. What's the guarantee that he's even going to be effective at that other position? Not to, dunk on his talent level or anything like that. But he's already good at free safety. He's ascending. He was a 7th-round draft pick. Just let him play, man. Just let them both play. Next question, I actually is probably my favorite one, and something that I'm excited to watch between training camp and as the season progresses. This one comes from @esoteric_vernacular. He asked, "Can Dyami Brown, rookie from North Carolina, become the wide receiver 2, and can Curtis Samuel take over in the slot. I guess I'll start out by saying I believe that I think both players could play inside and out. And maybe kind of like the free safety thing that we just talked about. I don't know if wide receiver 2 and slot 1 are like total solidified terms, because I think they'll have a lot of players that are moving around on offense as well, considering their skill set between being good runners and pass catchers, like Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, yada yada yada. I think we'll see Samuel in the slot. I think we'll see Brown. I think we'll see Cam Sims in the slot. Terry. I think that there are going to be a lot of people moved around. What are your thoughts on this question, Jess?
Well, position labels are very fluid nowadays, just like they are on defense. It's the same applicable to offense, where just because, let's say, a guy is quote unquote slot receiver or quote unquote, your X, your Y, your Z, whatever it may be, doesn't mean that's where they're going to be taking all their snaps, like you just mentioned. I I don't want to get too carried away in the Dyami Brown hype. Obviously, he's done nothing to. Everything he's done is pretty much just boosted confidence or positive, I guess, talk about what he can contribute in the fall. But I mean, Curtis Samuel, the team signed with the intention of being an outside receiver. That's how Scott Turner and the offensive staff played him in Carolina in 2019. Obviously, he had more success kind of being that loose slot wide receiver in 2020. But the team signed him with the intention of trying to use him how they have in the past. I mean, they've already have experience working with him. I think it's just more so. I mean, you can, like we just talked about this on defense. I mean, you can get guys like Brown, Samuel, and Terry all on the field at once without having like these position labels stuck on them, delegating their roles to just specific responsibilities. I think Samuel and Brown, or Samuel, Humphreys, and McLaurin are going to be your starting wide receivers. And I think there's still plenty of ways that Dyami Brown can get in the field without him having to unseat someone at one of those starting spots.
And a lot of this isn't even going to get. It's really hard to even gauge any of this because we have barely seen them on the field. We haven't seen them on the field at all, minus the iPhone videos we've seen from other reporters on Twitter from the little bit of OTAs that has happened. So I mean, once we get to training camp, there's going to be more iPhone videos out. There's going to be fan experience on the week that the fans are allowed to go. Then we can make a better assessment of maybe what this offense might be looking like. Where these players are going to fit in. This, that, and the other. To answer the question directly, absolutely, I think Dyami Brown, if he is as advertised, could become a wide receiver too. Absolutely, I think Samuel could play in the slot, but like we said, it's just tough to it's a fluid situation, as Jess mentioned. So next question comes from King_Dees. And this is something that we kind of touched on the last episode with Logan. He asked if rookie running back from Buffalo, undrafted rookie from Buffalo, Jarret Patterson has a chance to make the roster. Patterson is, if you listen to the last episode, my quote-unquote gem, steal, whatever you want to call it, could be training camp gem, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's another guy that you never know what's going to happen until you get to camp, till you get on the field. But he seems like he's got a lot of talent. He runs with power despite his small stature. But he's like a little bowling ball. And the person that he would be unseating is Peyton Barber. Jess, how do you think? Do you think Patterson's got a chance to make this team?
I do think he has a fair shot at unseating Peyton Barber. I mean, they have similar skill sets. What they can kind of contribute as that, running back 3, kind of in between the tackles, north-south running kind of type. I think, I don't know if I'd bank on it right now, but I don't think it's a far-fetched possibility to have Jarret Patterson as your running back 3 in lieu of Barber. I mean, Barber, not that his cap number is expensive and not that Washington is strapped for cap, but I mean, they could save, I think, $1.2 million by cutting Barber. And then you have a much, more inexpensive option and Patterson step into that role. I think it's more likely that Patterson makes the practice squad as opposed to Barber being cut and favor him, although I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But I do definitely think there's a chance that Patterson makes the roster.
Yeah, I'd have to totally agree with you. He's already drawn comparisons from coaching staff to Darren Sproles. And yeah, I think take that with a grain of salt because obviously you can't make an assessment until the players are on the field. But they are things that you'd like to hear coming from an undrafted free agent that you paid next to nothing for. So definitely has a talent. He's from the area. Great kid. Scored 8 touchdowns in a game one time. If we can get an eighth of that from him a game, then he'll be a really, really good player. So I definitely think that there's a chance that he makes the roster.
I actually had someone ask me something in one of my Instagram post comment section. Blanking on the username right now, so I can't credit the question. But I had somebody asked me if I thought Washington could carry 7 or 8 wide receivers, considering they are kind of have a log jam at the position. And I've got my own thoughts on this, but what would you say to that, Sam? Do you think Washington could take in 7, 8 guys at wide receiver?
It would be really tough for me to justify having 7 or 8 guys at the wide receiver position when me personally, I'd rather have that invested in either the offensive line or defensive line, or at the very least behind that, the secondary. It'll be really dependent upon how many offensive linemen they keep. I think that's what it'll come down to between that, and what they. Hang on, I gotta pull up. I made a post not too long ago about who I thought would last and make the team at wide receiver. I thought the final roster would be Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Dyami Brown, Cam Sims, Adam Humphries, Kelvin Harmon. That's 6. So on top of that, you're fighting with Kelvin Harmon, or I'm sorry, Steven Sims and Antonio Gannon Golden. I'm assuming are the ones that people would want to keep at 7 or 8, or Dax Milne, our 7th round draft pick. Just got to throw him in there because he's a pick. And it's nothing against Isaiah Wright or DeAndre Carter, but like how deep they are at the position right now, I just don't see either of them making the team or the practice squad. I mean, I could see 7, absolutely not 8. There's no way in the world 8. I think 6 is the max there. I think somebody, good teams got to cut good people. We've gone so long, and I know we've touched on this in so many other episodes. We've gone so long starting players that might not even make rosters on other teams. So like we're probably just gonna see guys go this year that our fan base and any other fan base is going to go in an uproar about. Like you might see Steven Sims Jr. go. You might see Antonio Gannon Golden go. I think it would be more beneficial for the team moving forward to let those players go as opposed to sacrificing depth at a position that they're not as deep at, if you get what I'm saying. So I don't know. I don't think I could see that.
I do, and I think it. One of my big reasons for the point was what you just mentioned there with depth. Adding that extra roster spot to a position like that, let's say you have 7 wide receivers, because that's somewhat, I guess, plausible by NFL standards. You're taking away that roster spot from somewhere else and some other player at some other position where that could come in handy. And it's also worth noting that I don't think you really need – I mean, obviously I think they're going to keep 6 because one of Kelvin Harmon, Antonio Gannon Golden, or Steven Sims – Isaiah Wright, Dax Milne is probably going to make it. But I don't think you would really even need to keep 7 wide receivers, considering how much Washington uses their running backs in the passing game.
Right.
There's not 700 targets to go around. They're going to throw the ball, maybe a bit over 400 times. It's like there's not all these guys, given they're good players, you don't like to see good players go, but there's only so many people who you can get the ball to throughout the course of a season. Obviously, injuries happen. People, exceed expectations or disappoint. But I think you roll with 5 and you have a 6 that you like too much not to have cut, and you live with being good enough at the position where you had to let some good guys go.
No, that's actually a super solid point, Jess, and I'm glad you brought that up about the running backs getting more opportunities. Because they've even the coaches, Scott Turner even said, like in his press conference, I believe a couple weeks ago, that they're going to be utilizing Antonio Gibson as a wide receiver more, which was, as a lot of people know, his college expertise really. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense, and it's not. I'm not trying to slam on the question or anything. It's just roster-wise and based upon the personnel that they already have, it doesn't make sense for them to do that. I think the roster spot would be better utilized in another area. That's all we have this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'd like to give a big shout out to Jack Davis for creating the intro-outro music that you hear on our episode each week. Be sure to follow him and check out his music at jack._com. If you like the podcast, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our podcast Instagram at the BNG Review. That's at the BNG Review to stay up to date on everything regarding the show. You can follow the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. Thanks again for listening, and go Washington.